Okay, hello everybody. This is Raheem from Sugarbox Studios. Now, I've been asked quite a lot to show how I edit my shots and things, and it's just something that I've never really gotten around to. And this is essentially a test video just to see how it goes. I'm still having a bit of trouble with my mic. I'm just basically recording it from my laptop mic, so the sound quality won't be the best. But anyway, I hope that you'll still enjoy this little thing. So basically, I have here, this is a straight out of camera raw file shot here. I haven't touched this shot. And to be honest, I think it looks quite good as it is. But say, for instance, I wanted to improve a few things, change a few things about the shot. This is how I would go about doing that. So I've got the raw file open in the raw editor. I love this feature because you've got all these different slides here on the sides and all these different buttons and features and things that you can do so many different things with. So this is essentially just a little introduction to the way I kind of approach my edits. So I'll try to keep this a little bit interesting, and but there will be times when I'm just going to be quiet and you'll just watch the mouse whiz around the screen. So first thing I might want to try to do is these green bars here in the background. I might think they're a little bit distracting, the colors. So I want to reduce the green, basically. So what I will do, I will go to the color selector here. So you have here the hue, saturation, and luminance. Now I don't want to change the color of them, so that's fine. As far as I don't want to make them look blue or any other shade. I just want to desaturate the greens. So to do that, I will go over here. I will just choose the green slider. So the best thing what I find is just to find what these sliders do, rather than just doing a little bit at a time. Whack them right the other way and see what happens from one side to the other. Okay, there you go, and there you go. So okay, there, and I might be thinking, oh, that's not quite enough. So chances are within this shade of green, there's also blue or yellows. So again, I will go around the other. See, I'm actually here on aquas. This is like a shade of green, shade of blue, whatever. So I can pull that right down and take it back to black. Nothing. As you can see, because there's no green on him, or very little, there might be some on his tattoos, um, it's not going to affect it. In fact, I'm sliding quickly there. Checking. Negligible to no difference at all to the subject. So that's cool. Let's take these right back to black. Then I've noticed over here, there's some red. Now, chances are, if I wanted to select the red over here, he's got shades of red within his skin tone. So I'll probably leave that alone for now, but I'll just show you what it does. Okay. Again, there's not too much on his body as far as shades of red go. There's a little bit. You can see there on his chest is faded, and also on his face, his lips, and what have you. So there might be a better way of doing that, but for now I'll just leave that like that. Another feature that I'll show you now is, for instance, I may be happy with the color on his body, the shading and things. I might think, hang on, his face looks a little bit too bright compared to the rest of his body. So how can I selectively just choose an area of his body, say his face? You know, there may be other times where you think, oh, I want to just brighten or darken this area here, whatever. How do I choose this? So to do that, I will use this tool by here. It's the adjustment brush. So the adjustment brush, once you enable that, it's got all these sliders, which is very similar to your standard slider setup when you're here in the default mode. But if you go into the brush mode here, basically you have this circular thing, which is your brush, and you can increase its size however you want. You could do it down here. And also the feathering of it, which if you look carefully here, you can see an inner circle. If I slide this down, it's made it a lot. You can see how that's changed basically. So the feathering area is it's the area between the inner circle and the outer dotted circle basically. So I tend to leave that there so it's nice and feathered. And then what else? Go away. Right. And then you can change the flow, which is the pressure of the actual brush down here, and then the density, which is there. Basically, have a play with these sliders and do not be afraid just to play, because you can always hit undo. Anyway, let's get started. I want to decrease the brightness on his face a little, so I will reduce the size of my brush. and then I will zoom in on his face. Again, here you can use the zoom features down here to zoom in. Boom, look at that. And then basically I have my exposure slider here. Whack it all the way down, up and down, you know, whatever you want to do. So I want to just bring the exposure down for now, just to show you how it works. I'll increase the size of my brush. I'll paint straight on his face. Oh no, look at that. It looks terrible. Who do that? Why would you do that? That's a bit weird. In fact, I'm looking here, the feathering is probably too much. So I'll hit undo, and I will bring the feathering down a bit, so I can be a bit more precise with my selections. Having said that, though, what I also do is I will sometimes paint it this strong, and you're thinking, okay, that's ridiculous, of course. But it actually lets me see straight away the area that I'm hitting, right there. By the way, this little red dot, this little pin rather, you can turn it off by here. And basically what that means is that if you're doing multiple adjustments, every time you try a new adjustment, it'll pop another little red pin. So then if you wanted to then change that adjustment again, you basically just click on the pin, and then that tells Photoshop that that's the little area you want to adjust with your sliders over here. So this is now way too dark, and then I will just basically, sorry, I'll turn that slider, this thing off because I find it distracting. Bring that up, bring it up, bring it up, bring it up. You think, okay, that's too bright. This is where it was before on 0. Just bring it down a touch to there, minus 0.40. And then I will go fit in view again and just compare the two. It looks a bit better, doesn't it? It looks more matched. Now, that's just a quick way of doing that. You may, again, you can create a new one up here, a new selection of a new area you want to darken, and it won't affect that area. Or hit undo. If you then wanted to afterwards, say you've, oops, that's not very precise. You wanted to check, I don't know why that's not doing that, to be honest. Should be able to click on that. Brush, right. Come on. Oh, that's strange. I'll have a look at that. But basically, I should be able to click that again and just adjust that area afterwards with this add enabled, basically. And then also you've got the erase feature up here. So if you wanted to erase it, you switch on erase and then just paint it all back out again. Now, I hope that makes sense. So fit in view again. There's a thing, pop that off because he looks like a unicorn. Boom. Now there's a thing here where I might think, okay, his skin tones, his body is looking a bit too tanned for my liking. I might want to change that. So I can just do that here in the saturation, which will bring the overall saturation down for the entire image. So you'll bring it all black and white, or you don't want it to look like, you know, Donald Trump or whatever that. So I'll pop that to there. Another way of also finer adjusting it is the vibrance. It's very similar to the saturation, but as you can see, if I slide it all the way down, it still retains some of it. So I'll pop that back. By the way, if you wanted to slide like this and you've moved off it, if you click it again and just double click your mouse on it, it'll bounce it back to the middle to 0. So I just want to choose his body. Again, selective colors. You go here, and this is the saturation. So I assume it looks like there's a lot of orange. So I'll bring the orange down. You see? Whack it all the way down, and then whack it all the way, so you know what area you're affecting. And then have a fine-tuning play. So say you bring it down to somewhere more like that. Cool. Sometimes as well, you can affect the skin tones and the saturation by going into the luminance. Like for instance here, if I go into the luminance, which is essentially the brightness, and slide that up and down, you see what that does. But that doesn't look very good, so I'll leave that. In this case, I'll leave that alone. Sometimes I do come into this bit and have a play as well. Now, another area, this is something I used to do before, but it can affect the skin. It it does a weird effect is the clarity. Now, clarity is a cool feature. It makes I do use this sometimes for men rather than women, because it looks better on men than women, I find. But if you just whack this clarity up, it makes the shot straight away look nice and gritty and things, but it kind of makes people look a bit more wrinkled. And like this, the other way is a softer, weird effect as well. But you might think, oh, that's pretty cool, actually. So what you can do, say if you like it as it looks on his body, but you don't like so much on his face, again, go into in the adjustment brush. And over here, you have a clarity slider, and you can put that back down to say there, and then you could paint it off so it doesn't quite look so well the way it does here, all popping and things. But notice that also the brightness changes when you up and down this. When you pop up the clarity, it affects the brightness, the highlights and things. So I might want to then adjust the exposure on his face because I think it's gone too dark. So I'll pop that back up. But essentially now, if I zoom back out, you can see his face still looks cool and grainy or whatever and gritty. His body does, but his face doesn't. So that's one little area, one little trick for that thing. Another thing I might want to do is a simple vignette, just to sort of darken the edges a little bit. Again, that's if you like doing vignettes. Some people hate them, some like them, but this is how you can do it. Where's it gone? Effects. There you go, I was looking at it. Right, so over here, under the Effects tab, you got your vignetting. So as soon as you hit it, these sliders here are all parked. As soon as you touch this thing, they'll jump. Boom. Right, so now let's just try again, go all the way. No, that's a bit weird, too dark. That's like old-fashioned wedding photos and portraits and things. That's so just bring it, you might want to bring it just like that. See that? Look at the edges, just a touch. But then you think, okay, if I were to actually do it like this, you can kind of see the roundness of it. And then over here, you can adjust how round you want it, you see. So I tend to, just to make it less obvious that there is a vignette, I will play with this roundness, so undo some of the roundness. And the same thing goes for the midpoint. Again, you could just slide that around and things. And the feathering is the kind of like the actual softness of the vignette. You see, if I go like that and show you, see, spotlight, soften. So again, I'll then reduce the vignette to say something like that. Looking cool, looking cool. Right, now say for instance I wanted to add an edit for the color, overall sort of color of the image. Some sort of grade to make it look like a film or something cool, whatever. There's a couple of ways of doing it. For instance, you might want to do it the overall color temperature, which is like the white balance. You might think, I want a cooler look to this shot, actually add more blues. See here. Just be subtle with this one, because if you go over there, that happens. If you go over there, that happens. It depends what you're after, but I think to keep it on a bit more edge of realism, you might want to do just a little bit of that. And again, have a play with this slider, see what that does. Adds a bit of green over to it. Doesn't look great. Be careful with greens because of the skin. The skin tone goes a bit strange. So there's that one, okay? Just a little bit of blue. Another way of doing it is split toning over here. Again, on the tabs, you've got the highlights and the shadows. This is a very sensitive tool feature. Saturation, I tend to like pop it just about there and there. And you can already see, look what it's done. So if you went on the shadows, which is all the dark stuff, obviously, slide that around until you think, oh, that still looks pretty cool. I don't like it too red. Bring it down a bit by there, say. And then the highlights, have a play with that and see what that does. So you can see what that is doing. Again, you might be happy with that. But again, it's just a matter of playing with the sliders. And then you've got saturation. Just bump it around, see what it does until you're happy with the result. And then finally, say for instance you're happy with this, but you want a balance between the two. You just slide this back and forth. It's very, very subtle. But you can see, I mean, if I were to say boost that up, I'll make it more obvious by doing that. And I'll give it two different shades of the colors over there. And then you can slide that around and it'll do more stuff. So, but in this instance, I'm actually going to turn this off. I'm happy with how that looks. And then, so those are kind of very basic kind of introduction to what is over here, the things that I use. I will play with these sometimes if I think the shot itself is underexposed. You can play around with the overall exposure here. Oops, undo, 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 undo. Contrast is pretty obvious. Highlights, shadows, whites and blacks. So now one of the things I look for is distracting elements or imperfections, spots, scars and what have you on their bodies. So to get rid of spots and scars, or like here you have a little bit of white paint, you've got a few things here. You might even want to get rid of this wire that's hanging right behind his head. Look for these distracting elements. But for now, one thing I'll try and do is say here, I've noticed he's got some bags under his eyes. And to do that, click this brush by here, is the spot removal tool. And again, you can change the size of the brush on this slider here. It's quite good actually if you want to go in closer when you're doing a bit more detailed work. And then again, I've got my spot removal tool here, and then literally a bit bigger, click, oops, and drag and highlight the area you want, and then Photoshop will hopefully recognize it and clone it away. Come on, there we go. And it does a fairly good job. Sometimes it doesn't always nail it, and so if you want to turn on this thing, you can actually see, oh, this is the area that I'm changing, the red bit, and this green bit is the bit that Photoshop is actually looking at, and then replacing this area with that area. But sometimes Photoshop gets it wrong, and so it just won't look right. So you can actually click and move to another area for it to select from. I mean, this is just an example of how it works, which is a bit silly, and you should see his eye, see, pop up there. So that doesn't work. So I'll pop that back over there, and it should be a bit more accurate. So I'll turn that back off so you can actually see. And there you go. The same thing over here. Wait for it to do its thing. And there you go. And then I'll zoom back out, fit in view, and you will have no idea, and it looks fine. Now I'll do that again to say this area over here. Oh, it's not paint, it's actually the other stand. So this is right on the edge. Now I will again use this to get rid of it, the spot healing. Now because it's on the edge of the shot, it may not do it very well. Oh, it's okay. Literally click and drag. And then Photoshop analyzes the area around it, and then it'll pinch something and then copy and paste it onto it, basically. Now this guy happens to have good skin, which is quite good because there's not much spot removal for me to do. But say that one by there. Again, literally click it, wait a second, boom, gone. And so that's a good way of tidying up and cleaning up people's skin, especially if you're doing fitness, because you will notice people's stretch marks and spots and what have you. So that's kind of what I do to a shot. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. There are many other things that I do, but essentially that's a good little start just to get you going on the shot. So I think this one here, there we go. That was the opening shot. You can see quite saturated, the greens and what have you, and the skin looking less gritty and popping and things. Whereas this one, well, you'll be the judge of that. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed this. I don't know however long this video is, little introduction, and maybe that taught you something. But this is the start, and I will be doing more in future.